Hello, everyone. Welcome to DNA's September 2024 webinar on webinars themselves. That is the topic for today, 12 ways to amplify your webinar buzz. Here at DNA, we tend to work on a lot of investor acquisition campaigns, investment crowdfunding, real estate, REITs, other types of offerings, fintech apps that target investors. And a webinar, a live broadcast such as this is a great way to market your offering, engage a live studio audience. I guess not studio, live digital studio audience, and see conversions happen in real time within 24 hours, within short windows. So highly recommend them. We're going to give you all the different tips and ideas that we've been able to take running these types of activations, seeing them work, seeing them underperform. You'll be able to stand on our shoulders, as they say. Success leaves clues. We've run these successfully. We've had high performing results in terms of turnouts, in terms of investments, within a day, over 500,000. It's truly astounding what's possible here. And we're going to give you a lot of different examples and strategies around it. I am joined here, of course, with Abby and Khalil. Abby, account director, overseeing the account managers, strategy expert. Abby, can you tell us a bit about your background so the audience knows who's giving them these excellent recommendations today?
Why, thank you so much, Jason. Absolutely. We work on such a high volume of these regulated investment crowdfunding offerings that we see just so many different ways that people go about it. And Jason often says that it takes between 7 and 17 touch points for any investor decide to actually purchase a securities and investment, which is, a little bit difficult. It's not transferable necessarily. They might have hesitations, right? You have to come up with smart ways to keep bringing them back to your offering page. So one of these sort of later stage decision-making activities that we really recommend are webinars, because people invest in people. You want to get in front of your potential investors and tell them why right now is the time and that you are the person that they should invest in. It does help. Anyway, we're going to be talking about how we do it and how we, if success does leave clues.
And Abby's worked on
Well,
several of the top
oh,
Regulation A plus campaigns this year, uh, over 100 other raises in general, many of the top issuers we've seen over the past few years. She's being modest and, wanted to emphasize that as well.
we do work on top campaigns. I'm grateful to have that chance. Yes.
And
Khalil, I'll pass
Khalil,
it on to you. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Khalil. I like long walks on the beach. I'm just kidding. But
I do.
yeah,
who
I'm
doesn't?
Khalil. Yeah, content director here at DNA. Going on, over 4 years now at DNA. And during my time, I've, been moderating webinars for all of our clients. We've worked with over 400 campaigns, moderating at least 4 webinars a week. So, you do the math, that is a lot of webinars. So I've learned a trick or two on what are the best, tips. And, we're going to be talking about the 12 different ways to amplify your webinars, when it comes to the promotions, the actual webinar itself, and what to do post-webinar, because the webinars are always recorded and it's going to be a great piece of content to use afterwards, whether you're going to be splitting them into different social media pieces, using it as a whole replay, or just using it as different ads. So really excited to get this going. And yeah, Jason, I'll pass it back to you.
Excellent. Excellent. So I want everyone to picture that as we're talking about some of these issuers and the webinars and the results that we saw. It was Khalil in the majority of those scenarios moderating that webinar. We of course give all of the credit to the founder, but it was Khalil directly planning, hosting, making sure everything was going smooth on that webinar. So those insights that Khalil provides, that's what's behind it. Now, every month we do this webinar, different topic every month, of course, and we produce a deck. So Brendan, our creative director, in conjunction with Khalil, puts this together as a result of conversations with the participants. So they actually, streamlined that this month. Abby and I played a lighter role, but it is Brendan, Khalil, and the creative team putting this together. These beautiful PowerPoint presentations. And this month talking about webinars, why webinars? I guess I could ask you guys, I mean, why are you tuned in today? Why webinars? It's an interactive format. It allows you to share your, in the case of investor marketing, investor acquisition, your pitch, your updates, showcasing momentum, and beyond with people globally. So easier for individuals to participate, join compared to in-person events. I get invited to a lot of investor pitch events in Los Angeles, and you get a steak, and it's a fancy restaurant, and they're tough to get to, especially in Los Angeles. For lunch, I have to dedicate an hour, each way for potential traffic. Then the thing itself, we're talking 4 hours, and I may still be cutting it short and leaving early. So you're not able to attend as many. As a prospective investor, it's much easier to have a Zoom invite added to the calendar. We've tried different platforms. We find Zoom to be the easiest adoption curve for participants. So continue to use Zoom webinar. Furthermore, some people avoid these in-person presentations as well too. You do get put in the hot seat at times. There are different types of dynamics at play where, if one investor comes in, multiple will come in often and they'll look at you, and it's very private when it comes to these digital webinars. So we see the turnout, really positive. Allow hosts to foster a face-to-face connection, save host time, one online event versus 50 personal calls. We've worked with some of the top issuers at that, and Boxable as an example. They were running a weekly webinar and looked at it as a group pitch. So instead of those 50 personal calls, as we're putting in here, you can hold one, have a variety of different individuals, groups showing up, and you still get that social dynamic that I was mentioning from in person, where it is more interactive with the smaller group. One person's question may answer three others. So for these reasons, I'm a big fan of webinars.
Yeah. And to add on top of that, and we're going to be talking about it more, throughout this webinar, we work with a lot of startups, and a lot of times these startups don't have that much content or assets to work with. So hosting a webinar gives us a whole hour of content we can utilize and splinter off to different content pieces. You could run it as social media posts, you can run them as paid ads, and it gives, the audience a more inside look on what you're doing inside the company. It gives you more that personal feeling, and it allows that personal connection. So these webinars are not just for these events to learn about the company, but it's to create content and to create more than just these personal connections.
Great. Well, what's next, Jason? I feel like you guys got that.
You want to kick this next page off, Abby?
Sure. Well, the title says it all, really. This is a later stage decision-making activity, right? So it's not, we talk about funnels, right? We want to build a funnel for people to sort of take multiple steps as they're making their making decision. And it starts off with broad prospecting, right? So sometimes it's someone who you haven't talked to before, but more often than not, it's someone who's already familiar with your brand a little bit and wants to learn more. So anyway, so you want to frame it that way. Khalil, what would you add?
I just want to add, while Khalil's on mute there, does everyone look good in that photo or what? Perfect cameras, lightings, the backgrounds aren't distracting. That's a clean looking Zoom call right there.
Yeah, I mean, we always say people invest in people. And when there is a founder that is very passionate of, what they do and the company that they're running, people are going to be attracted to that. People are going to see, how much time and effort you are putting into this company by just how you talk about the company. So these webinars really gives you that opportunity to showcase something that you can't really just show on a simple social media graphic. So that's why we, try our best to have our founders create these selfie video ads to invite people to these webinars so they can really have a glimpse of, from that personal level.
And I just want to add, both on the personal level and the mid-funnel aspect of this, driving traffic to an offering page, sending your investors, your prospective investors, to the deal page may not convert. If it does, probably 7 touch points or more. But there are many campaigns where it simply does not convert. And an effective conversion rate is 2%. Google says an average conversion rate internet-wide is 2.35%. So you may not see conversions for a while. It is an easier ask to have somebody attend a webinar. So if we're driving traffic, and we're going to talk about lead generation a bit more here, Khalil was mentioning, selfie videos, whether they're for the use of advertising or your organic content channels. If we're taking traffic to a webinar sign-up page, this could be an easier yes, especially for a page that has not proven to be converting yet. So you may be able to get audiences that are not motivated enough to invest yet to attend a webinar. And then by seeing you do your thing, present, talk about your industry, your area of expertise, the passion you have around your product, and the trajectory of where you're going without making forward-looking statements and being compliant, of course, but painting the picture of the industry or whatever's represented on your offering page that you're then animating for the audience. You can get more engagement. You could see a higher conversion rate on the other side. A good content marketing funnel statistically produces a higher conversion rate, and webinars are often the anchor of our content marketing tactics. Khalil's mentioned you could do a lot of things with the webinar, how you market before, during, after, what you do across social media, what you do across email, what you do with other long form content channels, repurposing as an article, mentioning on your offering page as part of the update section, getting out as a press release. There are so many things you could do, and we haven't even started talking about guests yet. But this can really go a long way for those audiences that are mid-funnel, particularly those that may not convert without it.
Yeah, no, I just want to add just one more thing real quick. These webinars are recorded. So a lot of times our clients will kind of think that, hey, I don't have anyone attending the webinar. It's not going to be a successful webinar. But since they are recorded, a lot of times people are going to watch this on their own time. Everyone who are potentially investing in your company have busy schedules more than likely. So, if a webinar time does not work for them at that specific time, keep your webinars recorded, post them on your YouTube, post them on your portal updates. So that way someone who can watch them later can take their time watching it and then hopefully make an investment right after that.
Blue, what's the importance of a solid webinar strategy? Not just putting a date on the calendar, but a full marketing approach towards it to maximize the results.
Yeah, with every great webinar, there always comes a great setup process. You first want to choose the platform. We always use Zoom, but there are different platforms out there like Livestorm and Demio. And then from there, you want to create a great webinar description. Talk about what's going on during the webinar. Make sure you get that description double checked by an editor or someone else on your team, because the information that you're putting out there is going to be something that investors are looking at. So you want to make sure all the information is accurate, whether that's members that are going to be joining the webinar, the topic, the industry. You want to make sure all of that is correct. And then from there, you want to create a visually appealing landing page. Brendan and Jake, our graphic designers on the team, do a great job on creating these amazing landing pages that will have different countdowns on them, the video of the campaign on those landing pages, and just different key points that are going to be discussed during the webinar. It just makes it more visually appealing than just a regular Zoom sign up. And then from there, you want to think about your promotions. We like to do a total of 2 weeks of promotions, which includes an email, a portal update, a social media post, as well as an ad. So that would be a 2-week promo, a 1-week promo, a 3-day promo, and then 1 day out, and then sometimes even the day of if you're trying to get those last minute people to sign up. And yeah, that is our strategy for these webinars.
A lot of people sign up last minute. And on the technical setup side of things, it's actually really important that you are controlling the conversation and you don't let anybody take over. So in terms of allowing who can chat and when, it all does need to be controlled and funneled through the Q&A section so that you can choose what questions you want to answer or not. A lot of trolls on the internet. Don't expose yourself to that.
Yeah. And you want to set your client up for success. So meet with them beforehand, before the webinar, and see what they are going to be talking about. Ideally, we want to have a presentation so the audience has something to follow. But if you have a solid plan, you don't necessarily need a presentation, but those are always recommended. And I do always recommend to run those presentations by compliance. There are some things we're not allowed to talk about during these webinars. That is anything that is financial projections, anything that's forward looking, anything that are deal terms, essentially. It just needs to be a solid ground for everyone who's attending, and all that information can be found on the raise page. So if someone does ask a question around those specific terms, best thing to do is just push them to the raise page.
Want to engage multiple senses, video being part of that. But if you're able to take it a step further, have some of the graphs, have some of the numbers in a deck, like Khalil's mentioning, it could go a lot further. Different types of learners, audio, visual, as a preference. Some people don't even know which one they absorb from best, but you want to have it all broken out, sell to the best, level that you can. We have used many other platforms when clients have other platforms set up. We are not restricted just to Zoom. As mentioned, we've just found that to be easiest for the audience. Zoom webinar, of course, you do not want to give too much control to the audience. As Abby was mentioning, that could lead to risks, if not an incident. And have some of those I can share from different things I've been a part of. I've spoken a lot of digital conferences, mastermind groups, accelerators. It just takes one hacker, we'll call them, to ruin a good event and even create a reputational risk for you, and to streamline the questions. And we'll have some more stories to share around how we've been able to group together questions and some different turnouts. Can you tell us more about the registration page, Khalil?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it needs to be aesthetically pleasing. The one that I've seen most recently that I've really enjoyed is this Epi1 landing page. Brendan did a really great job you can't see it here, but that DNA thing on the back moves it. So, it's really just, it grabs your attention right away when you open up the landing page. The fonts are huge and eye-catching. And then it's just really simple. Sign up for our webinar, and it has the form right there. And this landing page is connected to the Zoom. So whenever someone does sign up through this landing page, it directly goes straight to the Zoom registration page.
Yeah, it looks nicer than just the Zoom registration page setup. We see it does tend to convert pretty well.
And as you can see, simple goes a long way. These are above the fold. You'll often see on these registration pages a large degree of social proof, as featured by, publishers who've talked about them, partners, whether we're talking about Mayweather Fitness, Epi1, Atom Beam, lots of partnerships to be able to point at, given these were, campaigns that, had, seven figures on their offering page. So, that there was a strong element of social proof and validation there as well. But landing page best practices incorporate as much third-party validation as possible. Now, Abby, if you're putting together an event and you're looking at how many attendees are there, uh, and selecting speakers, what goes through your mind? What do you want to do to find, the best presenters, the best experience for audiences?
I'm always asking myself, how do we get more people talking about the company? Like,
Mhm.
who can we engage to really share it with their audiences, right? And you want to get to the right people. So you have to be selective in who you're engaging as a speaker. They should be relevant. Hopefully, they have a large following of their own, and they won't be shy about, participating in your webinar. Um, Really, the whole goal is to get the word out to the right people, right? And so this is one element of the strategy. You want to have an engaging conversation too. So you have to be looking for someone who is personable and charismatic and who you might want to have a conversation with. They should also
Absolutely.
be thought leaders in the field, right? So people have a reason to come and they want to be there. Um, anyway, Khalil, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the one company that I think does this the best is Adam Beam. Every webinar, they have a guest, whether that's from uh, a key partnership, whether that's from the management team, always has a guest that is very knowledgeable on a different aspect of the company. Another thing that we like to always emphasize on for our clients is, do you have a lead investor? Do you have that one investor who believes truly to their heart about the company that can hop into this webinar and talk about the company itself, why they invested, will they invest again, what can you tell a potential investor who's on the fence of investing? So all these different conversations, these fireside chats, it's really beneficial, just not just for the event, but down the line when we repurpose for content, you're using that third party validation as that add to a broader network.
Picture a webinar with Mark Cuban as a guest, a host. Oh, suddenly it carries more weight. You don't even know what the brand is or the publisher who's hosting it. You want to see that guest. If I did these webinars alone, they wouldn't be that great. You guys are here for Abby,
Mhm.
for Khalil. You saw that it's a group presentation. When I do the podcast, Test Optimize Scale, episode 174 coming out Friday. It's the guests. You're able to say, hey, this individual, Woody Neese put together the Jobs Act. He got the bill signed with the president back in 2012. This is a story that I want to hear. Or, hey, this is one of the top issuers to date. I want to get an idea of what was going through their head when they were marketing their campaign. I've had founders of Web3 companies with millions and millions of users and billions in market cap. It's being able to create this. And as a founder, if you bring on an individual with a large audience, as Abby was mentioning, they can promote, they could likely get many additional attendees just from their own audience that wants to see them. Also, part of their aura will appear for you as well. It translates over. It puts you on that same playing field. If we had Mark Cuban, you'd be like, wow, these guys are incorporated with Shark Tank, or maybe the past Mavericks, or they're doing something cool. They're on Mark Cuban's level. I should probably show up to this and hear what they have to say about equity crowdfunding. I'm using that as a high concept type of idea. But you get what's available to you. If you do the first presentation as more of a pitch, maybe us moderating or someone in your network moderating. It doesn't need to be DNA, but teeing you up a little bit, putting you on that platform. Great. Maybe the next webinar as a town hall. But from there, look at how you can incorporate guests. As Khalil was mentioning, a lead investor, someone that the audience can project themselves onto. And that's also why I was using Mark Cuban as an investor as an example, not just because of his celebrity power, but because how many people would invest alongside one of the top sharks. So that anchor investor plays that role in that piece of content, live and through the recordings. You could use clips of it in the advertisements, ongoing. So look at who can play the best role and cycle out different guests each month thereafter.
Yeah, a perfect example is we worked with A7FL and on one of their webinars.
What is A7FL?
A7FL is not your traditional football game. It's its own league. But they brought on David Meltzer to their webinar. And David Meltzer, serial entrepreneur, he's a very huge social media following. And he was able to, broadcast to his channels that he's going to be on the webinar. And I forgot the exact number of registrants. This was a couple of years back, but I remember it was a huge following who came to the webinar.
Awesome story. And promotion frequency, Abby, I know we were talking about dates a little bit. How important is this? I mean, can we just promote it once, maybe twice? And if we really need to do it more, help me envision how often do we have to get the word out there? What type of lead time?
I mean, you could do it once or twice, but it might not end up with the optimal result, right? It definitely helps to be well prepared and give yourself time. You want to have multiple touch points with people ahead of the event. It's easy to forget things, and give people time to plan. Making an investment in your company isn't usually an impulse decision, right? So giving them multiple times to be thinking about it is really important. Anyway, you can go about it multiple ways. You can see this bulleted list here: email, social media, portal update, paid ads, press releases. We want to do all of these things, right? And they have different purposes, right? So, and we'll get into this, I think, a little bit later on with some of these other tips. But a press release, for example, is one of those broad prospecting activities right at the top of the funnel. You might engage people who've never heard of you before, right? And then pull them immediately into a later decision-making thing where they're clicking on that registration page, deciding to sign up for the webinar, and then getting those emails to remind them to actually show up. And then getting that email after the event. That's what's missing on this page. Promotion frequency is post-event activities, right? Because you really want to have multiple layers. You want to give them the chance to see you in snippets before and after the event on social media, right? And paid ads are another great way to make sure that you're getting the word out. If you're working with an agency like DNA, for example, I think that one of our strong points is that we're showing those paid ads to our investor audiences, right? We cultivate very special audiences. I think that makes us stand out. Anyway, a lot of posting about it, right? So there's a high frequency of content involved in doing a good job at your webinar. You could also be including it on your offering page as one of the calls to action. Anyway, Khalil?
Yeah, and a lot of this stems on how big your audience is. If you don't have that big of an audience, we might recommend increasing the ad budgets. So that way we're pushing out the ads to a broader network. If your network is not there or it's too little of a network, recommend telling your team to reposting all the content. So that way the word is spreading out and it gives you more eyeballs on that content. You might want to change the frequency of the content. If you're noticing that the signups are just too little, you might want to increase it a little bit, or just maybe come up with a different strategy on how you're promoting the content. If the still graphics aren't converting, maybe try a video graphic, or if that video graphic is not working, let's try a selfie graphic. It's all, our motto is test, optimize, and scale here. So you want to see what's working, what's not working, and then really hone in on what is, and scale from there.
So I want to add one more note for frequency. I guess I could talk about the channel marketing mix as well and why it's important to have multiple touch points. I could give analogies of inviting friends, family to a personal event. Maybe it's a barbecue, and how you have to give them enough time to free up their calendar, or how you have to follow up enough. But what I really want to do is talk about this as a sale. You're selling somebody to attend this webinar. And it doesn't happen upon first touch point. If I'm looking at stats around sales, and this is from a past webinar, we've used this chart. It's always eye-opening when I do it in person, so I want to do it digital here. 48% of salespeople never follow up with the prospect. 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop. So this is, hey, we posted it to our social media. We posted it and reminded them the day of. 12% of salespeople only make 3 contacts and stop. Only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts. So more than 3 follow-ups, only 10% of salespeople are doing. Marketing is sales on a mass level. We are selling the securities on this offering page. I shouldn't say we, you are as an issuer. We're marketing on your behalf. Meanwhile, it's the reverse type of behavior that we see on conversions. 2% of sales are made on the first contact, 3 on the second, 5 on the third, 10 on the fourth. 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. 5th to 12th. So that's what we're seeing here in this breakdown. 2 weeks, 1 week, 5 days, 3 days, 24 hours, going live. That's 6. Hopefully with multiple channels, it gets to, closer to 12, but you get the idea. You're going to get a lot more signups. You're going to see a higher sign up to attendee ratio as a result as well. Do not be bashful. Follow up with the audience. Make it interesting. Don't post the same image and same message every time. You have to think of something creative. Distribute across all these channels. And by the way, these same type of ideologies can be projected towards your investment itself. And this is one of those touch points. This is one of those follow-ups, if you will, that engages an audience to a greater level than just an SMS message or an email or even seeing a retargeting ad, to get those audiences to move to the next stage of the funnel, the next stage of their decision process.
Yeah, and then just one last thing, we're probably going to talk about it in this next slide, actually, is you want to make it as easy as possible for them to sign up. You want to eliminate the different steps it takes to sign up. So what we found that works really well, especially with the paid ads, is we've created a lead form ad on Meta itself. And, so that way people can sign up directly on Meta. They don't have to go to a landing page or the Zoom link or follow an email. They can just sign up right there. And we've used the Zapier connection to connect those ads directly to the Zoom registration page. So that way we're eliminating all those extra steps. They're signing up straight from the ad and they're getting signed up to the webinar.
And those instant forms on Facebook, Meta, they auto-populate. So if I click sign up, it's going to have my name, email address right there. I just press one more button. It's then completed. And I get the calendar invite, I get, the email, I get everything sent over to me. What type of results, what type of projections, activity as a whole should an issuer anticipate by running ads to their webinar?
Abby, you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, if you're doing a good job with your promotions and you have a compelling ad, you can definitely be hitting $10 per sign up or less. If you're hitting a more expensive sign up, I ask myself, well, what kind of graphic are we using? Are we saying the right message, or are we not targeting the right audience? Right? These are different things that we could be optimizing toward to get lower cost signups of the right quality. But you will have to spend some money on it, right? Because advertising takes it is directly correlated to the budget you spend on it, is how many people you reach. So we have complete control over how much we spend given a certain amount of time. And we'd like to see our clients spend $500 on a webinar, especially if you have a small audience. Could be more, if you want to really throw everything at it. You're running a short run campaign, you say you've got 3 months to do this whole thing and you want to run just 3 webinars. We do recommend monthly webinars, by the way. It's not a one-time deal. So think about that from a budget standpoint. We believe ads are important to drive the right kind of traffic and get the right people there. And you will have to spend money on it.
Right. And if you're $200 into your $500 budget and have 100 signups, $2 per completed instant form, you may want to spend a lot more and really stack that audience attendance. Or perhaps it's a second webinar and you got a good level of signups on your first webinar. Maybe instead of 500, it's 1,000, it's 2,500, it's 5,000, it's 10,000. Hey, let's get hundreds of people physically showing up, thousands of signups. It could be thousands of attendees based on how it's set up. You may need to increase your GoToWebinar plan if you're doing that. But really lean into it. This is a tool that allows you to buy traffic, buy signups essentially, buy attendees, and you could be very specific in who you're reaching with those advertisements. Khalil, when you see 100 signups, when you see 500 signups, how many people do you project to actually show up?
Yeah. 40 to 50 is a little high, but we aim anywhere between 30 to 50% of those signups. Like I mentioned earlier in the webinar, a lot of times there's just a timing conflict why people, aren't joining these webinars. They still want to sign up to get the recording afterwards. But yeah, like I mentioned, we don't want to really put too much pressure on how many registrants are actually showing up to the webinar, because they're going to get the webinar one way or another. It's just, they're just not there on the live event.
And the marketing automation tools can help boost that. So the same thing we were talking about with the reminders and multiple channels, that should have a reflection on how many signups actually attend. And things come up, we could make sense of why it's not 100%. And the audience members that then get the video recording and watch later, ideally you should be promoting that video on YouTube or wherever you're publishing to continue to get eyeballs thereafter. But these email drips, social posts, if you have SMS automation put into play, you could get a much higher number of attendees out of your signups than the average issuer.
Yeah. Just this week, we, came to our mind that there are a couple religious holidays coming up. And, we have had clients ask us, hey, should we reschedule this webinar, or should we just do another webinar down the line? Our response is, let's keep the webinar on the books. People who signed up are going to get the recording afterwards, and we'll just quickly come up with another webinar down the line so people who wanted to be there live can sign up again and attend that webinar.
Exactly. Getting registrations with email marketing. Abby, what are the best approaches towards this?
Email marketing is really powerful, right? So anyone who's in your audience, they're already familiar with your brand, they want to know what you're up to. And so you just make sure to include email as one of your many channels, hopefully, that you're repeatedly reminding them about the event and making it seem like something fun. This is the hard part, right? Is that you have to be creative with subject lines are extremely important. If you don't capture someone's interest with the subject line, they aren't going to see the rest of the message. So I like the example that's presented here on the slide. I think these are really great subject lines. I'd click on these things. Psst, there's a webinar happening. Anyway, Khalil, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, and with what's great about these email marketing platforms that we use, it allows A/B testing. So you can test out different subject lines. You could see if just a generic, hey, sign up for a webinar, or psst, there's a webinar next week. You could see what's going to work well, what's not going to work well, which audience specific subject lines work with. And one thing I want to add about, just best practice for emails in general, it's you don't want to be sending to an empty audience. Start early generating those leads. So that way, when you are sending out those emails, you have a bigger list that you can send those emails out to.
And another note I want to add about these headlines and why I love this this point on the page. 20% is a decent open rate for email, and that's to your email newsletter audience. If you're getting 30%, that's considered high. The majority of recipients will not open your email, but more of them will see the headline. So perhaps they signed up and this is a reminder, and they're getting the content, they're getting the copy through the headline.
And one thing you can also do with email is after they sign up, perfect segue is creating an email drip campaign to those who did register. A lot of times people forget what they registered for. So creating an email drip that is only targeting people that signed up to your webinar, it reminds them, that there is a webinar, and it gives them a little more of an insight what to expect in the webinar. So that first email is a thank you for signing up, really kind of give them that first glimpse of what to expect from that webinar. Second email could be meet the panelists. So now they're going into the webinar knowing a little bit more about who's going to be talking during the event, and then get your questions in early, especially with our clients who have that higher number of registrants and attendees in the webinar. We can't get to every single question. We only have this webinar really scheduled for an hour. And so, we want to make sure we're getting every question we can answered. So to get those questions in early, we can get back to them if we're not getting those questions answered on the webinar. And then that last email reminding them about the event.
Exactly. And this is showing more of the attendance rate from the email drip itself. You will get people that, sign up day of and don't go through the full drip. So that's why the percentages are a bit different that we look at from the emails specifically. Other marketing tactics for getting registrations. Khalil, what are we seeing, outside of advertising and your own, funnel audience?
I'm actually going to give this to Abby. Abby is
Yes.
Abby is a big, she loves LinkedIn outreach when it comes to the webinar. So I'm going to let her speak on that one.
I think it's really powerful, right? So one of the things we do is strategic outreach on LinkedIn, targeting investors, right? Different kinds of investors. So for the example here, this is a webinar coming up in 6 days. And so I've been cultivating an audience for them for a couple months now, which means I have a pretty good number of people that have already expressed interest, and they're a little bit familiar with the brand. So for the past week or so, I've been running this messenger campaign that's reaching out to 1,300 people in their audience with a webinar invite. The screenshot shows at the time it had reached, 1,100 people-ish of that, and 41 had replied saying, "Great, I'm going to sign up." You can see below that's a pie chart of. I like to categorize people's replies by level of interest. And so you can see this is a pretty good cohort of people who are either what I call hot leads, or at least things you should follow up with. So anyway, LinkedIn is one powerful B2B channel. If you should be leveraging it as strongly as you can. You can absolutely find the people you need to be talking with on LinkedIn, especially if you're doing an investor acquisition campaign.
It always amazes me how many people put investor as a job title on their LinkedIn profile. Industry specific investor in many cases as well. And you could sort these by geolocation. Proximity has a power to it. If I get invited to connect with somebody and they're in Marina Del Rey, like me, like our office, I'm more inclined to respond. Maybe can meet with them in person. Maybe I run into them at the farmers market. I don't know. I just feel like they're part of my community, and it's different listening than someone from even, greater LA, Los Angeles area, or California, or another state, or another country. So you could see, proximity has a prioritization, you know, power to it, and we tend to filter in that regard. So you can send 25 invitations per day per profile. You can anticipate a 20% or higher acceptance rate, then a 20% or higher response rate, especially by message 3. You could have a scheduling link in there to book with those individuals directly, or as part of the follow-ups, links to the upcoming webinar, and inviting them to participate there. That could be the primary call to action at that. And when I break down marketing, I do it in 3 categories: content, advertising, and outreach. You see that we've talked about the content channels a bit with the drip sequences, what you're putting out across social media, email, and other long form content channels, advertising, and now this is outreach towards it. And all the channels really go hand in hand. Uh, we can use the webinar as an anchor campaign tactic, and still, to really, really utilize that live broadcast. We want to be using the other channels to get as much from that 1 hour, that half-hour webinar as possible.
Yeah, I mean, another way to really amplify your webinar is press releases. It's a very easy thing to do. It's a pay to play option, but it is getting more eyeballs on the event. I mentioned audience a little earlier, and if you don't have that big of an audience, press releases might be a way to get more eyes to your event. Because look, this press release had 2,374 views with 970 unique readers and 83 total link clicks. There's times where we have clients that have 83 total audience members in their email lists. So to just get 83 links from a press release goes a long way, and just to add them more, to get more and more eyeballs to your webinar.
Gives you the third party validation as well. Some of the publishers that pick up these stories and put them into syndication, and that this particular press release had 382 placements. You're seeing Yahoo, you're seeing Benzinga, you're seeing Global Newswire, CEO.ca, Digital Journal. All of these can be, I mean, you can see the logos right there, added to an offering page, a webinar landing page. In the webinar itself, you could see the amount of views of the webinar, how many readers. You get a crazy impression account, millions potential reach, and the actual views and clicks. Decent click-through, rate, 4.28%. Not necessarily a huge volume of traffic you're anticipating, but meanwhile, that those could be, your investors, and there are a lot of accompanying benefits to doing a press release. So, getting information out, having it, formalized. When we're working with publicly traded clients, micro cap type brands, under 300, under $500 million market caps, that they're getting out all of their updates through press releases, so that it is official. And this could absolutely be something that's incorporated for your webinar, and give the allure that this is a special event. This is, a major occurrence where you're getting out meaningful updates to the world, not just your email audience, but to anyone who has any type of involvement, let alone interest in your vertical.
Yeah, especially if you have that higher end guest on the webinar, you can present that, say, XYZ is joining XYZ company, come see them live, on XYZ date. So having that high end guest can really bring in more eyeballs to the event. and, showcases that third-party validation.
And probably win more syndication. You'll get more publishers like a Benzinga to cover the press release. How does social media play into all of this?
Yeah, we talked about in the beginning, you want to use different teasers, post it on all your channels, have your network reposting the content, and you can use a previous webinar as social media content to promote an upcoming webinar. We've seen that happen in the past, so that way people who are looking through the social media page can have a glimpse of what to expect on an upcoming webinar. We can talk about different takeaways from those webinars and then post consistently before an event to keep your audience aware. So it kind of all ties in from everything that we talked about and just producing it more on more and more channels.
So teasers, highlights, key takeaways, using the webinar to give more insights and consistency of that posting. Many brands, when Googled, it's their social platforms that show up in some of the top spots. So if a prospective investor, accredited or retail, is searching around, doing their own due diligence, it's likely they'll show up on a social platform and may see this webinar coming up after they've been to your offering page. So mid-funnel, as Abby was mentioning, someone who already knows about you and the offering, they can show up to the digital event, get more information, feel like they're connecting with you on a more personal level, seeing you in action, and basing their decision off of that. So I have a couple examples here. I don't know if you guys can hear the audio.
No.
This is MagFast. We have Seymour, who is a expert presenter, driving his Tesla, talking about his product and getting people excited about the webinar. Now, Seymour will spend weeks creating the presentation and really engineering every line that goes into the visuals that he then speaks about during an hour and a half long presentation. We were brought on to run advertising for a webinar that Seymour ran in April, leading into a 6-day Reg CF campaign. They got thousands upon thousands of signups, huge attendance, and saw over $600,000 raised within a 24-hour window of that webinar. In the following 6 days, they went from 600K to 1.35 million. Now, given they had a pre-existing audience, customers, past investors, they had very successful Reg CF campaigns before this as well. But we've seen founders, CEOs who fit that same bill, check those same boxes, have very marginal, even underperforming campaigns to follow, especially in a 6-day window. I mean, it was truly remarkable to see the webinar attendance, the webinar response, and the total raise amounts. And that was all possible because of what Seymour put together in the presentations, the advertisements, which we're seeing with some subtitles here. You could go on to Facebook ad library and likely find this. You could reach out to us. We could, send you the deck and you could hear all the audio with it. But as you can see, he's very engaging. He's got a very charismatic English accent. You guys can't hear him at the moment, but he is effective, to say the least. And as an agency, when we're working on behalf of a founder like that, we can just assume we're going to hit higher results. We obviously need the analytics to validate that, but it's a great example that I think every founder should take a look at before running a webinar.
I will say at DNA, we do not condone driving and recording at the same time. Put that out there.
That's true. We do not. Here's another example for Target Arm. So you could see the date, time on the side, very clear call to action. Again, subtitles. A lot of social media users scroll through their feeds without audio on. I'm one of those. You're seeing more of the 15 to 30-second version that we recommend. This is a 16-second advertisement. Former head of the FAA, showing his background, his accolades, and talking about the future of drone business. So, very personable. Looks like he's in front of his house, a house. I feel that's very welcoming, and it is similar to what I would see in a social post from a friend, a family member, someone I'm connected to online. Feels native.
Yeah, a lot of times when we ask someone to record a selfie video, they have this big image in their head that it has to be this huge production of a recording, where in reality, just having just a single smartphone and taking a selfie style video, we've seen those produce a lot better than the ones that are higher, produced, because it does seem natural, it seems organic, and it's more personable as an invitation to the webinar.
See the badge on his shirt, eye contact, everything about this feels relatable. This is someone I can trust. This is someone I could show up, listen to, likely get educated on. It's not saying you need to invest as part of this event. It's very low pressure and inviting.
Yeah, casual is good. If people really respond to that authenticity, captions are important. And also, I really like, the other visual elements on there. It sort of created fear of missing out by having the banner on the bottom that said, only one day left to sign up. Anyway, I'm just pointing out some of the visual elements that are kind of important, that where you want to make sure to include, bright colors, something eye-catching, but the video itself can be fairly low production quality. Okay. I know we're close to running out of time. I don't know how many more of these tips we have to get through.
Who wants to talk about peer-to-peer promotion? Because that is ultimate marketing.
A huge proportion of your total investors from the raise are likely to come from your audience, like the people you already know. So it's absolutely crucial that you stand in front of your raise, hopefully as a founder who's proud of their work, and make sure to just tell everyone every way you can think of. Ask your friends and family to share it, to anyone they think of who that might be interested. Who else can promote your event for you? How can we get people talking about this? You got to be asking yourself that question every day. Who else can I engage? Who can help me spread the word?
Repost, email to their friends, family, talk about it at their office. We've said this for the investment itself, is ask everyone put together a list of 200 people or more, try to call them direct, do an email. Please back the campaign and at any level, and more importantly, share with everyone these same two requests. The same can be done around a webinar. Also, the portal updates, the FINRA regulated portal. Let's say you're running a campaign on Start Engine like EP1. Post portal updates about the webinar. Investors may follow your raise page, but not your other channels. They may not subscribe to your email. So it could be a great place to notify current investors to join for the latest updates and insights. Also, some of the platforms such as WeFunder promote upcoming webinars as part of their email newsletter. And if you have it as a portal update, you could send it to them to get them to repurpose. 24 hours left, your ticket to the future of transportation for Pegasus. Tomorrow, get your questions answered with founder Jackie Yang. Gets the message across quick, and it's another touch point for these audiences. Khalil, you're talking about what to do with the webinar after it's posted. What do you do upon completion?
Yeah, and it's all listed out here. So you want to first send a replay to those who signed up for the webinar, and then you want to clean up the video, take away any ums, add subtitles, make sure it's compliant. So if there's anything that you said on the webinar, you want to make sure that's not compliant, you want to take it out, and then repurpose it as a blog, put it on the website, send it to your email audience, post it on social, post it on your portal, and then my favorite thing to do is cut the webinar up in bite sized pieces, so that way you're using that content more than just that one webinar. You can use it down the line, say that you ran out of ideas or you ran out of different things to talk about. You have multiple 1 hour webinars that you can cut up and use for different social media posts. So that way, you're never really running out of ideas. You have the content to work with, and yeah, you want to just make sure you're projecting it as much as you can post event.
And what's a tool to do that, Khalil?
To what? To cut the
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can use Premiere, you can use Descript. There are different tools out there. There's a lot of, cost-effective tools. But you want to really make sure you are taking that time post-event to find that tool that you like so you can clean up these webinar videos, and really make sure, one thing that I really have to emphasize is you're double checking those subtitles.
Yes.
There's a lot of times where these subtitles are AI generated and they are going to just, put out
Yep.
names that they think that that's what it's saying, but it's not. So I know it's a lot of work, but you have to sit there and watch and read those subtitles. You
Yep.
can't have, you're having investors looking at these replays, and you want to make sure everything looks clean for them.
So we are at the top of the hour. We are to the end of our presentation here. Want to encourage everyone who's tuned in to reach out to us. Reach out to Abby, reach out to Khalil on LinkedIn, send an inquiry through our site. Happy to speak further and about your specific initiative. Could tell you more about the Sky Quarry webinar and how they'd get over 400 attendees physically to the presentation, or the build club and some of the demos that Stephen was putting together. Can break down any questions and answer anything that you would like at that. So do not hesitate. Throw as many resources at your campaign as possible. Even if you don't have the ability to engage us, we are an open book and welcome a warm marketing conversation anytime.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. And none of these strategies would have happened if we didn't test them out. So don't be afraid to test out new strategies and see what works. And if it's working, keep doing it. Bye, everyone.
Test, optimize, scale, and we
There we
will
go.
see you all next month. Take care.